Let's have a go at a question which involves central limit theorem and hypothesis testing. So this is taken from the OCR January 11 Statistics 2 paper. It's question 4. The continuous random variable x has mean mu and standard deviation of 45. A significance test is to be carried out of the null hypothesis H0 that the mean is 230 against the alternative hypothesis H1 that the mean is not 230 at a 1% significance level. A random sample of size 50 is obtained and the sample mean is found to be 213.4. Part I, carry out the test. So the first thing is we've got a bit of a problem because we don't know what the original distribution was. So we need to change it into a distribution we can do a hypothesis test for. Well, because we're looking at a sample size and a sample mean, our immediate thinking is central limit theorem. The question is our sample size big enough? And because it's 50, we know that it is. I'm going to use my central limit theorem to say that x bar can be modelled as a normal distribution, and we're going to use the mean of 230 because we don't know any better yet, and our variance of 45 squared over n, and n is 50. Again, because it's a normal distribution question, I would draw out a normal distribution curve. I'd put my z and my x bar values in. What we want to know is whether or not to reject our null hypothesis, and we will reject our null hypothesis if we find that our value is in the rejection regions. And because we're looking at just not equal to the mean, we're going to have two rejection regions. It could be greater than or it could be less than. We know that our shaded areas must add up to 1, so each one must be 0.5%. So now I can have a look on my table. The table that we want to go for is right at the bottom of the page. This tells me that my z values are 2.576 and minus 2.576. So now I just need to find the z value for my 213.4 and see how it compares, whether it's inside the rejection region or outside the rejection region. So I'm going to say my z is equal to my x bar minus my mean over my standard deviation, the normal way that we'd find our z value. We're going to use 213.4 minus 230 over 45 over root 50. And when I put that into my calculator, I get minus 2.608. So now I have a look at my 2.608. Well, my minus 2.608 is less than my minus 2.57, which is the edge of my rejection region. So I am into my shaded part. So I'm going to write as minus 2.608 is less than minus 2.576. So I'm going to reject my null hypothesis. And now we've got to give the answer in the context of the question. So the question was, is the mean likely to be 230? Well, there is sufficient evidence to suggest the mean is not 230. And then for part II, explain whether it is necessary to use the central limit theorem in your test. Or if we have a look back at the information we were given, we decided that we did have to use the central limit theorem. And the reason was we didn't know what the apparent distribution was, and we had a nice big sample size, so it was appropriate to use it. But the main thing is not knowing what the parent distribution was meant that it was the only way that we could carry out our test. And that's the end of the question.